What's up, guys? ChattyCRC here. I guess ChattyCRC and PC. And today we're going to talk about the parts that I have in the build and show the build video in case you're interested in seeing how complicated this is and all that kind of stuff. So I picked these parts based on just a lot of the bigger YouTubers out there that have already done builds like this and everything, and just a nice small form factor and a good way just to get in and get back to a PC, because I can't do anything with my Mac anymore. You can't take them apart. It's maxed out on memory. It's like 4 years old. It just can't handle some of the things that I want to do. So again, if you didn't watch the last video, you just get rid of some of the quad fleet that's just hanging there that you don't fly, and you get something else that makes you more productive, and hopefully can give more videos and better stuff here on the channel. And that is a cat back there. Alright, so the first thing, the Core V1 case you're going to see on here, it's pretty popular right now. It's really cheap. All the links for everything is down in the description. All these prices change. So the build comes in basically somewhere around $5 to $5.25, and then of course when you start adding different peripherals and stuff like that, or video cards like up there, or another cooler, it can explode, but not that much. We're talking another $150, $200. So, but rest assured, the performance out of the base Ryzen 2400G, the Ryzen 5 second generation processor, overclocked with the video card built into it. It's not the true Radeon now. It's just the actual, I think they call it, like, it's not cores, but it's called like threads or something like that. So it's running like the Vegas 11 inside there, and 720p high quality, medium quality, runs great. You can still stream, all that kind of stuff. So now if you want to get up into 1080p, you're going to have to drop things down to a lower type of deal. And she is on my laptop. Oh my gosh. So anyway, so yeah, the Ryzen 5 2400G is what I settled on. Awesome. Now the big thing, next question is, Ryzen stuff is kind of particular, so I had to go and pick the motherboard out next, which I ended up going with this MSI B350 motherboard that has the sticker. And if you look on like Newegg or Amazon or anybody like that, you're going to see that it's going to say Ryzen 2000 ready, and that means that you're going to be able to plug in a second generation Ryzen chip into it, and it's going to be okay. If not, your BIOS on the motherboard is going to be too old and it's not going to work, and you're going to have AMD has like a kit that they'll send you in order to like update it and everything like that. So if you go with a 350 motherboard, make sure it's Ryzen 2000 ready. If you go with a 450 or 470, it's already going to have that stuff built into it, so you're going to be okay. The next thing is the power supply, the CORSAIR CX650. Any type of 550, 650 type of power supply will work out. Even if you want to add a video card down the road, you just need that extra little power to hook up to it and to keep things running cool and efficient and everything. It's a semi-modular power supply, so you've got the two big braided CPU cables that are hardwired inside, and then all of your PCI Express and all of your SATA power cables are all modular, so you can just plug in a couple cables that you want. You don't need to put them all in. You'll see that in the video. After I picked out the motherboard, the memory is very key, because Ryzen loves memory, and it needs a certain kind of DRAM, DDR RAM that can be, you want to be able to overclock it, and you want to have like the ability to do that. To keep memory prices are through the roof right now, and they doesn't look like they're coming down anytime soon. So you're going to need to find the best speed and at the best price. And I had to settle on 8 gigs, 16 gigs. It's just too much, and honestly I just don't want to pay for it. And from what I've seen so far, it hasn't hindered my performance. I'm sure I would get better performance out of 16, but right now 8 is working good. I ended up going with the Patriot Viper series, which is down in the links, of course, at the bottom and in the description. And I looked up the actual compatibility charts on the motherboard to make sure that it was tested and verified to work with Ryzen. So everything is all good with the memory. Initially, I started running the stock cooler, which comes with the actual Ryzen APU, and it works fine. But if you want to get into like overclocking and stuff like that, you're going to want something a little bit more powerful. This case can support like a liquid cooler with like a 120 millimeter radiator, but then you lose your 200 millimeter fan. Maybe I'll go that road one day, but right now I did upgrade the cooler to the Deep Cool GAMMAXX 400, which is working out just great. It's a little too tall. The heat sinks stick out about a ½ inch at the top of my case, and I ended up having to pull the plexiglass top out of there, and actually I put some window screen and made it all nice and just cut out like little pieces for the heat sinks to stick out on the top. I also added a couple of these LED 80 millimeter case fans for the 2 exhaust ports on the back to help pull more air out of there. And then, you know, of course, now I have the GTX 1050 Ti, which has, you know, cooling that blows out of the side, but we're not going to be going over that in this build video. Besides that, the only thing else you'll need, of course, is your peripherals, your mouse, your keyboard, monitor, TV, anything like that will work. You just plug in HDMI cable and it all works. Audio goes over and all that good stuff. You'll need a USB drive that's 16 megabyte. Everybody says greater than 8 megabyte, but they don't really. An 8 megabyte won't work. You need a 16. I've never seen like a 9 or a 10, you know, thumb drive. But you need that to go onto Windows and create it's called the media creation tool, which will create like your Windows installer disk, and you'll put that into the new computer whenever you fire it up and load up Windows, and you don't need to buy it or activate it or anything at that point. Actually, I don't think you ever need to. If you don't activate it, the only thing I'm pretty sure that you don't get right now is like screen customizations and maybe a few other things, but I haven't discovered anything other than that and the annoying watermark. So I am going to try like some old keys. I heard that like those will work sometimes. I just haven't got around to it yet to verify any of that. So with that said, there's going to be more coming on this stuff. Take a look at the build video here if you'd like. Skip around. It gets a little messy at the end, and I kind of like had to skip through some stuff and just kind of talk through some things. But super dead simple, great performance, great price. And yeah, I'm like really happy. I'm recording all this on it right now. OBS is running in front of me on the big screen here. Adobe Premiere's been running, cranking, rendering stuff out really good and fast. So I am very, very happy. So take a look at the build video. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you here in a little bit. Alright, so we'll do some of this kind of vloggy style and some stuff on the tripod. So I have pretty much the very first important stuff laid out on the bench here. So we got the motherboard, we've got manuals, we've got Wi-Fi antennas, some screws, some SATA cables, the knockout I/O panel here, and then of course we have the Ryzen CPU itself and the AMD cooler. We're going to be using the stock cooler for now until I get my case, and maybe we'll upgrade that down the road. You know, that's a cheap $20, $30 thing to do. So I've went over everything and kind of looked at stuff, make sure that there was nothing busted or anything like that from shipping. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the Ryzen into the AM4 socket and mount the cooler on top of that, plug it in, and that is pretty easy. So if we look at the actual AM4 socket, what we want to look at is this little triangle right here, and we are going to match that little triangle up with the little triangle down there. So we're going to basically turn it around, and we're going to pull up the lever here, and it's going to drop right in and fit, and then we're just going to lock it in with the lever. Alright, so we got a pretty good view of that. We're just going to put this stuff to the side here because we're not going to need any of that right now. So we are going to just lift up on the AM4 socket lever here. Just comes up and swings up, and you can see how it kind of shifts a little bit on us. And then we're going to take the Ryzen out, and we're going to make sure to only touch it by its sides. We do not want to get oils or nothing on from our fingers onto the top of the processor, because that'll mess with our heating. And we've got those arrows lined up, and yeah, it just literally drops right in there, no problem at all. Push down on that, lock it over, and now she is all locked in. Nice and easy, super simple. So now what we're going to do is we are going to place the CPU cooler on top of it. And you can see the AMD CPU cooler actually comes with heatsink material, thermal paste on it. And there's a backing plate behind the motherboard here that will hold our screws. And what we're actually going to do is take off these standoffs here with the only tool that we should need, besides some zip tie cutters, a Phillips screwdriver. It's pretty much all you need to build a computer these days. And we're going to pull those off and grab the heater. I'm sorry, grab the cooler. And we're just going to set the cooler right down on there. We're going to give each thumb screw a couple turns to lock it into place. Spin this around here, make sure that we're getting into those standoffs. Alright, now that we have all four of those started, we're just going to tighten that down. And it seems like what it does is just kind of go for a little bit, and then the springs tension up, and then all of a sudden you just hit like rock bottom where you can't screw it down anymore. So I'm just doing it real light until I hit that, and I'm not over tightening it any more than that. Alright, and that's it. Everything is mounted on there. I can actually look and see in the board that underneath there that the thermal paste is being actually spread out a little bit on the sides. So on this motherboard right here is the AMD non-LED type of fan plug. So we're just going to plug that in right there, and that's it. Alright, so here we are, and really don't know if this could be easier. I unpacked the power supply, and the power supply has these two big braided cables off of it. One is for the main power here for the motherboard, and the other is the 12-volt CPU powered over here. And then all I have right now is just one peripheral SATA power cable, which is going to my SSD right here. And then I put on my antennas, put in a keyboard and mouse, and now I don't have a case, so therefore the motherboard isn't going to power on unless it thinks there is a button there. But what I can do is I can jump the pins right here, and now everything's firing up, and it thinks that it has a case on it. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the BIOS, and there you go. Alright, so the audio didn't work on this track here, trying to mix different cameras and everything. So what we're looking at here is a couple days later when I actually received the ThermalTake Core V1 case. Just kind of talking about the size of the case, actually how big it is. You can see my hand there, it's not a whole lot bigger. It's a cube style. I'm sure you've seen it on YouTube. You can see the big 200mm fan there in the front that pulls in a lot of air and is really nice. Power supply just goes on the bottom. Motherboard just goes on top of that. Everything's kind of compartmentalized. If you turn around here, you can see that I have the IO shield there installed already. And there's 2 spots up above there for 80mm exhaust fans, which aren't the most popular things for people. I did end up installing a couple in my build that is not shown here. You will need a 2-to-1 splitter, just because there on this motherboard there is only 3 ports for fans, and so you'll have 4, so you'll obviously have to split that and everything. So all in all, my case was in good shape when it showed up. No problems at all. Some people have talked about the quality control on some stuff and maybe some bent up things during shipping, but no issues at all. So what I'm doing here is just throwing up the power supply on the table, the CORSAIR C6 650M. I went with a 650 watt power supply because I do, and actually already have, expanded the graphics card inside here, and it's a semi-modular power supply, so the 2 main CPU cables are actually hardwired in, and then everything else can just be added however you see fit. So the fan's going to be mounted facing down inside the build, and that way all of the air from the power supply will get away from the case as much as it can and keep the dust out. And here I'm pretty much just talking about the cables. Again, all I have, I hooked up the PCI Express, I hooked up an actual SATA power cable, and then the main ones, and that's it. So just bring the case on over to the bench and just kind of get everything situated here, and the power supply just basically slides in from the back, or actually you go from the underneath side. The cool thing that's about this case is all the sides come off of it, the top, the bottom, everything, just with 2 thumb screws for each side, so it makes everything simple and easy to do. So you just got to route your cables right through here and then just pull them all through, deal with them later, get the power supply in there correctly, and then we'll just basically be mounting it up with the 4 screws that come with the case and everything. There are a few different thread types that come with the case. The ones that are CORSAIR on the left are actually the ones that fit the standoffs that are pre-installed for the Mini ITX motherboard, and the little ones that have the finer threads there on the right can actually be used for the power supply. They can be used for your hard drives and everything else. Got the power supply secured with all the screws there, and there you can see I just flipped it up on its top, and I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall the bottom cover because there's just no need to have it open anymore. But you can see all that space in between the power supply and the front of the case where you have the stuff, all of your extra cables, which is pretty nice. It would be really cool if you could actually buy different length of cables to help clean up your builds even more. So, but there's what the bottom of the case looks like. Dust filters on there, and again, it just goes on with 2 thumbs. So this is where things get a little weird. Next thing I did was just mount the motherboard. It literally goes right on top of the 4 standoffs inside there, and then it pushes and clips into the back IO board. You want to make sure that that is in firmly and that you don't bend it, because it's very easy to bend. And you can also kind of see here that I did have to reinstall those original motherboard risers because I ended up adding the Deep Cool aftermarket cooler on here, since I'm overclocking the GPU beyond speeds that the stock cooler can handle effectively. So this is basically a clip-on. There's a clip on each side of the motherboard, and it's really easy to install, simple. And the next thing I did was I started prepping the hard drive. Here you can see the SATA data cable, which is coming from, well, the data cable and the power cable. The one on top is coming from the power supply. The one on the bottom comes from the motherboard. It's all in the manual as far as like how to plug it in. You can't mess it up. The hard drive is actually mounted to the front of the plate, and you can see the SSD here is just mounted with the 4 screws. Really simple and easy. And here is a look at the finished product of the hard drive install. And I kind of had to route the cable. I pulled the other drive bay holder out and kind of routed the cables up and around and got that all taken care of. So that way I have a little bit more room to kind of stash cables and everything away. Next item on the list was to go ahead and install all of the case pins and case cables, including like the USB 3, the HD audio. All goes into the motherboard easy. There's no place to mess up where to put it. You can refer to the manual if you need to. I did refer to the manual here just to make sure that I connected up all of the individual case pins the right way to the front header, which is right there on the front of the B350 motherboard. And here's a quick look at how the motherboard and everything is actually mounted and sitting in there. That cable is actually the HD audio cable that we were talking about earlier, and all the other cables as far as the case stuff all goes up into the front of the motherboard. So after that, I pretty much lost all my video, but everything just goes back together. You just put the panels back on, use all the thumb screws to tighten everything up, flip your power switch on, hook up your mouse, keyboard, all that stuff, monitor using HDMI, fire the thing up, and boom, it just all works. It's literally that simple to get everything up and running. Now, I had already created my Windows disk and went through and made sure that everything worked before I got the case. Maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't. It was just I didn't have the case and I wanted to check everything out, so I downloaded Windows. I got all the updates going. I set up everything, Chrome, and started downloading all the different things for overclocking and testing out video cards and the performances and all that kind of stuff. My cooler that I did install is a little bit too tall for the plexiglass top case, so I basically used some kind of like window screen and just cut out a little bit of holes for just the heat sink pipes to stick out, so it sticks out just a little bit, doesn't look too bad, gets the job done, so really not that concerned about it. I did mount 2 80mm fans in the back to help pull air through, as I needed a little bit more cooling, because since this build I did add a graphics card, which will go through all that kind of stuff and overclocking and stuff maybe in some other videos. But this build here out of the box is great. Like I said, 1080p low quality settings on all your video and stuff runs fine. 720p at like medium and high runs fine. You can do screen recording with OBS at the same time. I didn't have any crash issues or nothing like that. After I overclocked my memory and overclocked the processor and kind of beefed it up a little bit, that's why I had to get the extra cooler. Luckily, these PC parts are a dime a dozen. I mean, I think the cooler was $25 off Amazon. It's just amazing what you get for your price now. And the thing is that the mini ITX stuff actually is a little bit more expensive than like your ATX or mini ATX type of builds. So you could actually get, like, you know, the B350 motherboard here, you could actually get like a 450 or even a 470, which is even better for the new second and third Ryzen 5 and 7 AMD chips, and you can actually get those for less than this one here. But I like this one. It kind of seemed to be a go-to, like I said, with all these parts from watching a bunch of different YouTube builds and everything. and out of the box, I was super happy with it. I already planned on getting another video card, so maybe I could have waited and went ahead and got a faster Ryzen and just did that. But so far, it's doing everything that I needed to do, and at the most, I would be out like 20-30 bucks that I paid extra for the Ryzen, and I can probably always sell it. You know, memory is the thing that really hits you hard right now, because the memory prices are just like skyrocketing, and supposedly everything else is going to be even jumping up in price again because of a multitude of factors that some of are just out of everybody's control. A lot of overseas stuff and product, you know, supply issues and stuff like that. So hopefully this kind of like gave you a good glimpse of like the whole build. If you got any questions or anything, please feel free to let me know. And you know, I'll be pumping out a couple more videos on this system and some stuff and showing you everything that it can do. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk to you later.